Welcome to Empowered to Grow, the podcast. I am your host, Hanan Basha, the business doctor. Following our conversations with empowered women who woke up one day and consciously claimed, I am more than enough, I am worthy, I am empowered to grow. And along their empowering journey towards realizing their own potential and their quest for growth, they became a beacon of hope and guidance for others. May you also find your inner power to grow. Hello, everyone. Beautiful evening, day, morning, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. Today is World Mental Health Day. So happy World Mental Health Day. And when I got a part of a newsletter saying that this is World Mental Health Day, I thought this was an amazing opportunity to get together with other empowered women and talk about something that a lot of us are talking about all the time: mental wellness in the workplace and how it impacts our lives, but not just talk about it as in talk about it and that is it, but actually talk and say and do something about it in a way that might disrupt some people, might disrupt some industries, but in a way that I know would serve us all. So I'm gonna go ahead and start the presentation, and then accordingly, I'll introduce you to the beautiful ladies over here. So let me just share the screen over here. There we go. So as I was saying, World Mental Health Day. It's as per the World Health Organization. And I know we've been hearing of the World Health Organization a lot over the past few months, but this time they've been doing it for a number of years. They've got World Mental Health Day, and it's observed on the 10th of October of every year. And it's the objective of raising the awareness of mental health issues around the world and mobilizing efforts to obviously support mental health. Now, this is a day that provides an opportunity for all stakeholders. And when we say stakeholders, we know who we're talking about. We're talking whether you're an employee, you're a business leader, you're a business owner, you're chief somewhere, or you're on the other side supporting everyone within the workplace. Then this is the day that those stakeholders work together to bring solutions and to talk about their work and to say and see how we can support each other. So our objective, us, the ladies, is to raise awareness of how to advocate and cater for mental wellness within the workplace and mental health. But more importantly now, whether it is what used to be and how the re-emerging working from home context is, the WFH. And I know a lot of people could be thinking about a lot more words that go with the acronyms. But the point is, why re-emerging? And as my friend Nermeen had said earlier, that working from home has been around for some time, but it obviously gained a lot of popularity, whether by force or not, over the past few months, but what that means, and transitioning into what could be a new normal for everyone within their work place or within the working from home context. So what we'll cover today is, well, I have to introduce you to your hosts, and you get to know the experts in the field and how and why they're talking about this topic. Then we're going to be talking about, from each of our perspectives, briefly, what mental wellness is all about. And then we're all going to introduce 3 strategies to implement today. And then we're going to open up, lastly, we're going to open up the floor for any questions you might have. So stick around with us. Trust me, disruptive conversation you don't want to miss. So your host, the beautiful ladies with me. And yes, I'm all about women empowerment. If this is the first time you heard me, this is what women empowerment means to me. It is about bringing other empowered women on the platform, and we all get to share our expertise and our experience. The lovely Susanna Harkonnen, the lovely Nermeen Fauzi, Jocelyn Elias, the lovely, and myself. I'm going to ask the ladies just to briefly introduce themselves and a bit of their story, so you know who they are and where they come from. Susanna, would you like to go first, please?
Yes, thank you, Hanan. Hi, everybody out there. I came into this mental wellness world from when I was in my 20s. I had a mini burnout in my first job. And that mini burnout, and when I say mini burnout, I mean burnout, you have a whole range, and when you're young, burnouts may not take such a toll on you as they do later in life, but it was nevertheless a burnout. And that burnout didn't happen because of work demands per se. I had a very demanding job and I traveled a lot and I had a lot of pressure, but those demands were not really causing the burnout. It was rather the work environment, a relatively unhealthy boss, and environment that was in opposition to my core values. But that experience was a wonderful thing because it triggered me to really look into myself and dive deep into psychology and all sorts of things that will make me feel better. And as I did that, I went through a whole range of things, from healing to yoga to eating healthy to psychology to, I've tried it pretty much all. And I was wondering to myself, why are we not healing? Like, why is this not working for me? I'm following all these things properly and thoroughly and sticking to a program. Why is this not working for me as it should? And the interesting piece was that when after having already a counseling degree and tons of counseling work under my belt, I found trauma work and neuroscience. And that's when it really hit me, like bingo. It really makes a huge difference in people's lives. It has made a huge difference in my life. It makes a huge difference in my client's life. I see it regularly. And this is something that I want to share with the world. And that's why I'm here. Because I believe that that piece of neuroscience and working on yourself and being mindful, and that all together is part of mental wellness. And mental wellness is a choice. It's like health. We can choose to be healthy. We can choose to exercise. We can also choose to take care of our mental wellness. And that is what I want to share with the world. I do believe that now it's the time to really step up to this and go to another level.
Great. Thank you, Susanna. Nermeen, would you share a bit of your story, please?
Sure. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm very excited to be with these lovely ladies talking about this topic that's very relevant, I guess, to people recognizing that it's Mental Health Day. So my background is hardcore corporate HR, so not always very popular with a lot of people, but for about 20 years I've been in corporate HR, mainly in multinationals and global organizations. I've also worked with a lot of entrepreneurs through a fantastic organization called Endeavor for the last 8 or 9 years. About a year and a bit ago, I decided that I'm going to leave corporate and I wanted to do something different. So I do have a business partner, and we have a organization or a company called Foster Edge. And what we focus on really is organizational transformation. So looking at all the things related to people, technology, kind of processes internally, and making sure that businesses are going where they want to be going and delivering the business outcomes they want to be delivering. A couple of years ago, so I'm a certified professional coactive coach. And my coaching kind of journey is what kind of, I think, brought me here. When I first started doing this, I had to, because of the organization I worked with basically told me I had to go do this certification. That was the biggest, so it wasn't very voluntary. I had to go. So I did, and I went in there with a high level of arrogance. I thought, I've done so many of these things working in HR for so long, I know everything. It'll be the same kind of, experience that I've seen 100 times. And I couldn't be furthest from the truth. For me, that journey over about 2 years, it was definitely life-changing, and very humbling. So, we've been taught, I think, as very young children to have these masks and use them when we need to, whether in our personal lives or professional lives. And what I really learned, what I really valued from this coaching experience and becoming a certified coach is that you can be, all of yourself every day. And almost, I always assumed I knew my values, and I discovered through this journey that I didn't. I thought I did. I had these very rational ideas of what they are and what they should be, and it was very, very far. And I think through that journey, I've discovered kind of, what I really value, and starting to do what I really valued and what I really felt was important really changed my outlook. And very relevant to today's topic, the stress level, the feeling that I wasn't happy and not fulfilled and not satisfied. Once I discovered this, that completely changed. So that's kind of, why I'm here today, I think. And I look forward to spending the next hour or so with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Jocelyn.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I think my story is similar to the lady's story. I come also from a corporate background, having worked there for over 15 years in leading positions from marketing to communications. And throughout my job, I have also championed so many wellness activities in organizations. Which really drove me into digging deeper into this topic. What is wellness about? Since most of the activities we were doing were not really giving me and also the majority of the employees the sense of wellness that we are looking at. And this is where I started to dig deeper, and I went into the world of neuroscience and wellness psychology. Hence, Mindset Rewire was born so that I can also help organizations to transform their businesses from the inside out. And this is what I do today. And I'm happy also to be here, and thank you, Hanan, again for having me here.
Thank you, ladies, all of you, for being here, for accepting the invitation, and for taking up the challenge to do some disruption around here. For those who don't know me, my name is Hanan Basha. I am the business doctor. And yes, as cheesy as that sounds, that was part of my journey as well, getting to this point. I walked out of corporate after about 12 years or just over 12 years when I had our son, deciding that I would get too stressed out. And I actually got a few illnesses and ailments and diseases because of the stress, that I decided I want to walk out and I want to take care of our son because I did not want to bring that kind of stress back home. Little did I know that about 4 months later, I went back into private business with two of my friends and partners. And we decided one day, we sat and said, so now what? Should we do something together? Which I think is the starting point for a lot of businesses. That took on a journey of about 5.5 years, and about 4 businesses later, helping co-found. And one of them I ran completely, literally by myself as a managing director, but also, as with startups, as the driver and the and the supply chain and the marketing and the salesperson, everything in there. Yet again, I got burnt out, and I got burnt out really bad. This time it was a burnout that should have landed me in hospital. Well, at least 2 to 3 times during that journey. And every time I couldn't afford the luxury of stepping out of my life to take care of me. Until one day I decided I have to. It wasn't an option. I was running myself to the ground. During that time, I started also on my doctorate degree, just because I never have enough on my plate and it's always a challenge. Why not? Well, why not was not very smart. But anyhow, I stepped out to complete my doctorate degree. Thought it would take 6 months, took 1.5 years, a lot of stress, a lot of ailments, yet again, bringing me back to the same point again, where after I completed my degree and earned my title, I realized I need to do something about this. And that's what led me to my health coaching certificate, and what led me to my journey of realizing that I want to support women. I want to support women in business. I want to support women in balancing out their lives. And now I've even evolved to say how to create synergy in their lives, in the sense that we can do it. Decide on what you want to do, decide on the objectives. What are you trying to achieve? And accordingly, go out and find it for yourself. This brings me to this beautiful platform of where I thought I started a Facebook group for ladies called Empower to Grow. And from that, I started a podcast called Empower to Grow. And my life became about empowerment, but not empowerment as in we hate men. No, that's not what we do over here. But it's more about I have a voice, I have expertise, I have a say in how I want my life to be shaping out. And I know that I have the power within me to go out and achievement. And that's what women empowerment over here is about. And led me to, working with women, especially, mostly. I say primarily with women. Of course, I do work with men as well and with business owners and stuff. But the reason why I wanted us to have this disruptive conversation is possibly 99% of the people, and I think we all had this statistic in common when we spoke about it. There are people who say, I hate my job, or there are people who dread the Sunday or the Monday, depending where they are in the world, waking up and going to a job. There are the people that can't deal or can't handle another day with that toxic boss, or those interfering workmates, or whatever it is. And we started thinking, okay, what can we do about it as individuals, as coaches, as professionals, but more importantly, how can we raise the awareness of how people can change their lives for themselves? And thus, this is where we're going to start. So Susanna has prepared for us a few slides. We're going to each go through our slides from our expert objective, and then we're going to continue the conversation. Susanna? Thanks,
Hanan. So here are some statistics for those of you that are very rationally oriented, that you like rational learning. I'm a sucker for all numbers, so that's my background in logistics and supply chain in the past. But at the moment, mental health is a huge topic in the world, and it's actually the leading cause of workplace issues and absences in the entire world. It's quite surprising that we don't talk more about it, probably because it's such a sensitive topic and it has so many interpretations around the world. But at the moment, just the cost of workplace issues and absences is roughly $1 trillion per year. I left all the zeros on the slide on purpose because it just puts it into perspective. Trillion is such a huge number. And the stigma continues to be strong. There are, of course, certain regions in the world like the Middle East or Asia, for that matter, where mental health is equal in people's minds often to mental illness. And therefore it's a taboo to talk about it, but it's not, I'm based in Europe. We're not part of that either here. It's not a popular topic, and people don't openly disclose that they see a therapist or they have mental health issues. So therefore, and I'm sure those people who are watching this, you may have had this experience where you have an issue and you don't want to tell your employee that you're depressed or you're anxious or you have some other issues that are going on in mental health issues that are going on in your lives. I remember working for a large organization that happened to have a staff counselor aboard, and I was going through some really rough patch, and I said to myself, like, look, I'm a psychological counselor. I mean, I should maybe go and see a colleague and talk to this person. But even myself as a psychological counselor used to therapy and disclosure, and I don't have a problem with working on myself. It was really hard, and the trust was really absent. So there were all these things going through my head, like, okay, like if I go and disclose anything, will this go to my boss? Will this go to my HR file? Will this have any other consequences? And this is typically what happens to most of us. We don't want to share these things with our employees, and workplaces also don't have an environment where it's okay to talk about those things. And before the pandemic, 20 to 25% of employees were affected. These are people who have a diagnosable mental health issue. Most of it's anxiety and depression. But now the recent event had really skyrocketed this number. And there are different kinds of surveys. Statistics are not there yet, but surveys show that anything ranging from 40 to 60% to 80% of people have been affected one way or another during the pandemic. And this keeps changing now, because at the beginning, some people were highly affected. There was a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear running. Now, then the loneliness piece came in, the difficulties of managing work and life at the same time, working from home and all those issues. So it really has been a curve. And we are starting to see really the real impact of what's going on at the moment in mental health world. So mental health covers a wide spectrum, and we all know this. We've had probably experiences of these sorts of things. We've been in a workplace where we were maybe excelling, and it was great. That feeling of excelling in your job is just fantastic. We'd like to be there all the time. We can't always be there, but it's the place which we all aspire to. And we could also be thriving and just having a really, really enjoyable work. And we really, it gives us something back. But then the next step towards the red zone is really the surviving piece. And the surviving, and that's where the yellow zone is where the problems start, when we are not feeling good anymore. The surviving and struggling. This is in crisis. And in crisis, these are the people that fall into that 20 to 25% or more at the moment. People whose mental health actually impacts them quite significantly. And I would say, from my own experience, that the large majority, as actually Hanan you were referring to that, the large majority is either surviving, struggling, or in crisis at the moment. It's really rare to come across somebody who's thriving or excelling at their work. I can remember meeting 2 persons this year, actually. And when we talk about mental health, it really is a basic human right. It's been written in all kinds of conventions, and it's one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So there are lots of companies that are working on the Sustainable Development Goals, and this is a good opportunity to actually include it in their company policies and in their SDGs. And again, mental health issues, they have been increasing significantly. So this might already be the case. So we are sort of 10 years ahead of the predictions. But mental health issues will be, by default, the #1 cause of illness by 2030, and cause more than cancer, diabetes, and respiratory diseases combined. That's huge. It's huge. So when we look at the mental health piece, the real question there is not what's wrong with you. A pain within you is not a pathology. We like to pathologize things and put labels on people. I don't particularly like labels in the mental health world. You're depressed, you're anxious, you're bipolar, you're this, you're that. It takes away our ability to really manage our lives and ourselves. But the question really is not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you. Because whatever is happening, whatever we are experiencing, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, whether it's any kind of mental health issue, it actually has its roots in something that has happened to you. And it's something that's in your nervous system. It's something that's in your body. It's not something that's in your head. The reason why we don't quite know why that is in our body, and we keep running in these circles like hamsters in our heads, because we don't have access to roughly 90% of ourselves with our conscious awareness or our thinking mind. And most of us like to think that we are very aware and conscious, and we do maybe meditation and we do self-awareness practices, and we think that we're self-aware, but quite frankly, it's the percentages are still relatively relatively low. So therefore, it's really, really important to learn to listen to yourself, to your body, and be in tune with what's really going on with yourself. Because thinking or analyzing your issues is not going to heal them. They're not going to go away. You sometimes in the therapy world, you see people who have been in therapy for 20 and 30 years. And they're perfectly capable of analyzing all their issues and, their mother and father issues and everything under the sun. But they still keep doing the same things. They still keep feeling miserable, and nothing has shifted. So thinking or analyzing or even understanding your issues mentally is not the same thing as healing them. And that's where the body piece comes in. That's where the what is wrong, what happened to you piece comes in. And listening to your body and going from that way.
Thank you, Susanna.
So
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Do you have a question?
No. You have a point. Sorry, I hadn't realized you got one more point to cover. So it's about empowering ourselves then.
Yes. So the empowering piece, everybody wants to empower themselves. This world is now full of empowerment coaches and empowerment programs. And that's really, really, really good, because empowerment is what makes us take the responsibility back. That's what I was referring to in the introduction when I mentioned about mental wellness. That's a choice. That's an empowered choice. And that's an empowered choice in spite of your situation or circumstances. And that's really, really important to understand, because you cannot change a toxic workplace by and large. You can try to do something, and sometimes you can actually shift things, but sometimes you cannot. So that's the point, is not to feel discouraged or disempowered in any way, but to really, I think it's all about feeling that your life is in your hands. You have the choice, no matter what. So how do we do that?
Let's sorry, Susanna, let's get to the how do we do it when we hear from Nermeen, because then we can have a discussion, all of us, of how do we do it from each of our perspectives. Thank you. Nermeen, coming from the HR background and now empowering all the organization itself, as in the individuals of the organization, because organizations are not virtual people. But can you take us from your perspective, please?
Absolutely. So wellness is holistic, and mental health is part of that wellness experience, along with emotional and physical and other areas of our lives. And if we kind of look at in the last, I'd say maybe 5 years or so, a lot of corporations and organizations have focused on wellness in general, and mental health being a part of that, for different reasons. I don't want to start bashing corporates, because it's very easy, I think, to do so, and a lot of people will tend to do that. But I think we definitely see steps by a lot of corporations. Again, the intention or the reasoning or the trigger for it may be different. Some of it good reasons, some of it not so good reasons, just because it's a buzzword, or it sounds very sexy or whatever else. But also some people genuinely are interested because they realize that the impact of mental health and wellness in general, other parts of our lives, is just so intense and so strong, and it really, really impacts what we do, and things like productivity for organizations. So this is a stat by Rand organization. So there are a lot of programs out there. How effective they are, that may be different from one person to another, but definitely there are many of them. Yeah. And I think what we've seen with everything that's happened with COVID-19, that there's a significantly increased focus on wellness in general, and especially mental health, just because people were in lockdown, kids at home, people getting sick, people panicking around what's happening with hospitals. I think we really, really saw it. And I think maybe one of the few kind of positives from COVID-19 is I think people are a lot more comfortable and a lot more open to discuss mental health in general. So looking at kind of what are organizations doing in the wellness space. So I think all the way from, I want to say nothing, but no, from negative, yeah, there's a negative starting point, and negative is basically organizations where not only are they doing nothing, but it's almost a taboo to even discuss in the workplace, all the way up to organizations really focusing, having even dedicated teams and budgets to wellness programs and mental health being a big part of that. We're seeing a lot of discussions around, so who owns wellness in organizations? And I think that's a big question mark that really drives the importance and where wellness is on the organizational agenda. Sometimes it can be just left to a very junior admin person to run, all the way to being on the agenda of a CEO and everything in between. What we're seeing more and more is when there isn't a very clear kind of identification of who owns wellness in an organization, usually HR takes up that role. Either they do it internally, or they're responsible for getting external help, whether consultants or coaches or other people who work or have those expertise in the field. So we see a lot of that, and that's great. There are a lot of, we talk about, when we look at corporates, we always look at formal programs, but I think there are also a lot of informal programs. Some of the formal programs are even incentivized. You know, if people, you know, take up, I've seen organizations where they offer mental health days. So, you know, they add to your kind of your vacation balance, and it's almost encouraged, please do take them, yeah? So that people are incentivized to take advantage of it. Having said that, it's still very tough. There are still a lot of taboos around it. There's cultural stigmas around, depending on where you are in the world, like what Susanna was talking about earlier. There are generational, I think, with older generations are probably more uncomfortable than they are comfortable for the most part. I don't want to generalize too much, but that's kind of what we're seeing more of. And these kinds of organizations, to also be kind of fair to corporates, they're not easy, they're not cheap. There's no one size fits all, right? So they need to do a whole lot in many different areas to be able to have any kind of impact on one end. And on the other end, there are a lot of things happening from employees' side, whether formally and informally within teams or work groups or, you know, whatever it is, to really, because they feel that they need to help themselves. And I think that's also sending a clear message to corporations that they need to be supporting these more, and so forth. You know, toxic work environments, I think that's a very unique thing. What's toxic for someone can be for someone else. They have a very different experience, a very positive experience. A lot of it has to do with who I work with, who my manager is, the team I work with, the kind of work that I do, and whether I enjoy it or not. So I think, you know, lots and lots of things for organizations in general to do, but all members of that organization, be it leadership, be it HR or employees.
Thank you, Nermeen, for a very insightful intervention over there. I have so many questions, but I'm going to keep my questions as well. So we're going to have our Q&A apparently as part of our discussion at the end. Jocelyn, would you like to take it there, please, from your perspective?
Can you hear me? Okay. So yes, of course, I agree with Nermeen and also with Susanna. Indeed, there is a huge stigma around tackling mental health or mental wellness around the organizations, despite its direct connection with the business results and how it is negatively impacting be it the business itself or even the global economy, as we have seen from tons of research and statistics done by the World Health Organization. Now, to Susanna's point as well, when organizations talk about wellness, I think that there is a lack of awareness that's really pervading over there. Mental wellness goes beyond what we are seeing today from activities, be it around physical health, be it around yoga, meditation. Those mindfulness tools are extremely helpful, but I think we need to be very careful over there, and with the activities that are being carried to tackle a root cause or a root issue that is impacting the businesses and the employees directly, be it from stress, be it from an anxiety or the pressure and the burnout that employees are suffering from. I mean, like, absolutely, people do have access to all of those mindfulness. People know today that they need to work out to be healthy. So why do we keep on repeating or reinventing the wheel with what people already know? What I have been noticing as well in my career and talking with organizations, with even individuals, there is a very subtle, alarming, I would say, thing where it's going under the radar. I don't want to say research, because there is research that is really highlighting that issue. Is nowadays you look at employees and organizations, and most people, they do carry stress as a badge of honor, or I would say a symbol of success, because it's not normal in our culture today not to be stressed or not to be overly anxious and busy day and night. And I think this has become kind of like a cultural, societal disorder that is socially accepted. So this is one of the points that also we want to highlight in the wellness world. So when we talk about anxiety and stress, yes, we need to go deeper than what is obvious and what is known. Second of all, since I've also championed a lot of wellness events across my career in the corporate world, I think it's about time to also test the efficacy and the efficiency of the tools and the modalities that are being used. We've been focusing on wellness as in like eating healthy or running or exercising or whatever the modalities, even some entertainment events, because that's a separate issue on its own. Now, when we are talking about wellness, we need to go beyond that and probably tackle what goes from the neck and above, and stop really focusing on what goes below the neck, because the figures are really staggering. Stress is the number one cause of, today you will see it, of the many illnesses and diseases that are being seen in the healthcare premises. And plus, this pressure is the number one cause for people not to be satisfied also at their work. So when we're tackling wellness, we don't want to go on the surface, but we really want to go deeper on that issue. Otherwise, it's honestly like using Band-Aids for a neck bleeding problem. So it's time to stop and question, why is stress or mental health is continuing to be on the rise? Where did we miss? What did we do? And from also my experience and my discussions, another point that I want to bring about, besides the stigma around tackling mental health at work, even though people have open door policies, etc., yet people do not feel comfortable talking about uh, um, what the pressure or the stress or the burnout that they are going through, regardless of the reasons, whether they want to continue or ensure their employability, they don't want to face a raised eyebrow. But the fact is, as human beings, none of us really have two brains, one for work and one for personal life. So when we are coming to work, we are bringing all of our being into work, whether we're comfortable, we're stressed or not, we cannot separate. And tackling this issue at the workplace as not as stigma as it's normal, because we need to normalize the point of like, it's okay to not be okay. And this goes from probably the CEO into the executive and the rest of the employees. None of us can deal with the amount of pressure or stress without having to tackle these issues all on a personal or deeper level. So my point is that when we talk about mental wellness or wellness in general, I want to put it that way, we really need to start to focus on what goes above the neck, and the rest will follow.
Thank you, Jocelyn. So, okay. So I'm going to bring it home then with just the overview from my perspective. And from that perspective, I mean, all the ladies we've been talking about, you can't talk about mental wellness without talking about everything else in your life. And there is this concept called primary food that I got to learn and talk about when I was going through my health coaching certificate. And the concept is as simple as that. What we feed our bodies and what we feed our psyche and our brains and our minds and everything is not it's not just the food on our plate, but rather everything on the plate and everything around it. And that around it includes our relationships, our career, our spirituality, our joy activities, even. And a lot of people, like Jocelyn was saying, and actually all the ladies were saying, that we're disconnected from doing things in our life because it's so abnormal to be talking about actually having joy in life. Because if you're not stressed, you're not achieving. But it is the constituents of all of these things that make up your well-being, and your well-being and your wellness and your mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical are all connected, whether we like to admit it or not. So when we're talking about stress, and I think stress is now kind of the word we refer to, or the term we refer to when we talk about everything happening in our life. Oh, I'm stressed. And usually stress is on so many levels. But that stress actually is, the impact of it on our bodies is humongous. We are still just about scratching the surface of the physical impact of stress on our bodies, of what it means to have your sympathetic nervous system, which nervous system that kind of fires off your stress hormones, so your cortisol and adrenaline and all of that, of having it fired and on all the time. This leads into chronic stress, and that chronic stress means that everything around your body, your internal systems that have been created to protect you, are just crippled. Your immune system is crippled in that sense. Your digestive system gets a second backseat, and even your reproductive system gets put on hold when you're just stressed, because your body is trying to deal with that. It's processing through all the signals that you're being chased by a lion, whilst in essence, we're not being chased by lions. We're just being breathed down our necks by a boss who wants us to satisfy an untimely deadline in just a day that would take 10 days. And these are the kind of things that trigger our body. And these are the kind of things that impact our wellness. And these are the kind of things that cause the psychosomatic symptoms, which actually means that your body is physically manifesting that stress into symptoms, diseases, ailments, and everything around it. So that being said, and that being, I think we've got the numbers from Susanna, we've got the perspective of what is happening and the holistic view of this from Nermeen. Jocelyn has been talking to us about, well, literally, well, all the ladies have been talking, but we've been talking about, you know, the neuroscience related to that and the impact to it. Now we get to think of mindset. And I know mindset for a lot of people is, woo, yeah, right, I can think different. Yes, you can. I'm sorry, I'm going to blow the bubble right now. I'm going to say mindset does make a difference. And that as simple as something that I know might not be very realistic for a lot of people, but even a simple mindset switch, it's called our transformational vocabulary. It's the way we talk. Tony Robbins coined that term, and it's the way we talk to ourselves. It's the way we listen to ourselves. It's the terminology we use. And by changing the I have to go to work, and whether that have to means now, or going means now a physical movement, or that means working from home and means trying to have that synergy or that balance or that stress within the household now that you were trying to kind of disconnect before, to I get to go to work. And I get to as in a privilege, as in something that I'm grateful for. And I know that you might not feel that way when you're going to a stress-inducing atmosphere, but provided that there are others around the world that have no job, that have no income, provided that you are doing something that you actually do love to do, as in that is your purpose in life. Being an engineer, for example, you might just not be doing it in the right organization. Now that is something at least to be grateful for, that you're still doing something that you're passionate about. So it is changing, it's having those small conversations by ourselves, with ourselves, through our minds, and shifting that mindset when it comes to that. I talk to a lot of people who want to transition out of corporate life and into entrepreneurship or their own business. And they're like, but I don't know how to do it, or I don't know when to start, or I don't know when to stop. And I'm like, and I hate going to my job, but I need it. I need the money. And yes, the conversation, I know we need a lot of things. But for everything we want to embark on in life, there are compromises. And the compromise is to stop and analyze, what do I want now? What am I going to make? What am I going to do to make it happen? And how can I utilize the best of my resources right now? And as I say, resources are not just about money. Your resources are your time, your energy, your knowledge, specifically when it comes to experiential knowledge, and your money. So how can I best capitalize on my resources right now to be able to transition into the next phase or the next plan or whatever my next project could be? So this is kind of, try to make this as summarized as possible when it comes to addressing your mental wellness. Ladies, do you want to let me unmute you? And okay. Am I muting you guys or unmuting you? Okay.
I am.
Okay. Do you want to go into the mental wellness advocacy strategies, or do you want us to kind of disconnect for a bit, have a bit of a discussion about everything we said for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then come back and talk about the strategies moving forward?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's go for this. Let's have a chat.
Yes, I think chats are good. Chats are productive.
Chats are productive. Yes.
Okay, so let's put it this way. I mean, Susanna, you wanted to go with now what? And I said, hold that thought. Let's come back to it. And I think that's the kind of discussion I want us to kind of have. Now what? We keep talking about issues and we keep talking about raising up the red flags and stuff. Now what?
Do you want me to go?
Go. Let's do this.
Anybody else want to
from the now what?
Well, I think that this goes back to, so we know that psychological safety is humongously important for human beings. You have all referred to that one way or another. If we don't feel psychologically safe, we cannot be innovative. We cannot give our best. We don't even think straight. And this is, the psychological safety, and you go to Google or you go to these big names, they build psychological safety into the organization. Whether that's successful or whether not, that's of course debatable, because psychological safety, like Nermeen was saying, we are all individuals, and for one person, the organization may be safe, and for another, it's not. Anyway, so when it comes to psychological safety, I believe that there are two things that we can do. There's one thing that we can do as individuals. We can be advocates for our lives. That's where the decision on mental wellness comes from. I am going to do my very best to build that psychological safety into my world, whether I have it or not. Whether it's actually, I don't have to wait for somebody to give it to me, whether it's above me or next to me or wherever. It doesn't have to come from somebody else. I can build it from within. That's the only place where we can go, really.
So Nermeen, what do you think now, talking about the psychological safety and that we're all individuals?
So, I think the journey really starts at a very individual level. So I agree with both Jocelyn and Susanna. That's the starting point. What I like will be different than what someone else likes. What I'm comfortable with is different than what someone else is comfortable with. And I think that's the biggest challenge that, when we talk about issues like this in general, we tend to have this kind of fishnet approach where one size fits all and nothing could be further from the truth. And I think it's our role and almost our kind of responsibility to make sure that we ourselves understand what we want and what we like and identify, because no one's going to do that for us. Yeah. And I think sometimes, just to be fair to companies, I think a lot of people think that's the company's job, and I can't hold a company accountable for understanding what I as an individual am comfortable with, what I like, what I don't like, what works for me, what stresses me out. It'll be different, and for me, that's up to each of us to do. And then other people can take other roles, whether people in our lives, whether organizations, different leaders in the spectrum. So the starting point is with all of us as individuals.
Right. Jocelyn, what now?
But now, I certainly agree with both of you ladies. People have to take responsibility for their own mental wellness or psychological health. Yet I think we need to face also some critical questions or answers. What I have been seeing is that people don't know. There is a silent epidemic that probably not everyone is talking about it, which is the information. People are confused. Susanna, I think you've mentioned very early in the presentation that yes, I have done what I have been told to do. I am following what the hype or what the trends or what is like the world is telling me to do. Yet I'm not feeling well. And I think this is where people are today confused, whether they have access to all of this knowledge or not, because we all carry those mini computers and our laptops, but people really are not able to tackle their own mental wellness with the capabilities or the modalities that they have on their own. And I would say, since also the workplace is the main source of stress, it's okay for both individuals and organizations to collaborate and work together, because probably not every person is capable of getting some professional help or really some professional consultation and going into therapy or whatever modalities that is needed for that person. But we see really a lack of, so we really need to take this issue seriously.
I agree with all of you. And I think that's the point, is it's the transitioning. And I think yet again, it's the overwhelmed part of there's so much information and there's so much guidance on you should be doing this. And I think Tony Robbins, Susanna has this, that people should all over themselves. But in essence, that it's not about should. It's about what works for me as an individual, what works for us as an organization, with the size of the organization, with the locality. And, you know, we were talking earlier today, and I was talking about the localization of the solutions. It is, I can't take meditation and force everyone in the organization to do meditation. I can't take yoga and say, we're going to go do group yoga sessions, and this is how mindful we are, and this is our wellness practice. It is about creating and finding solutions that work for you and work for your sector and work for your culture and work for on so many levels. And that's where tailoring again comes in. But it starts with awareness, and then it moves on to information, and then it goes through processing, and then it goes for advocacy, and then it goes for let's try it. And you never know if something works or not. But also more importantly, then you can start having the limited options of, we've got 2 to 3 options of something that we as an organization are chaperoning, are offering, and we want you to try them and give us the feedback. And it's a continuous loop, because it's a relationship. We can't have relationships one way. I mean, in personal relationships, that's where things fail, when it's just one way communication. There has to be that back and forth. And that is literally what all of you ladies have been saying. Susanna, would you like to add something before we go on to the strategy now?
I think that one thing that organizations could do concretely, there are clear benefits to doing mental wellness programs. There are, like UK is a good example, Australia and Canada, the 3 countries that are doing a lot of good stuff in the mental health field. It really, you know, yields returns. So $1 spent in mental health gets you $4 back in return. That's a pretty good, you know, return on investment.
Yeah.
In some cases, they say it's 5. So it's, you know, it's a massive return on investment. So I do believe that organizations could take more action, and I think that there are 2 key things. It's really the building the psychological safety into your organizations deliberately. It is a conscious effort, and it has to be done deliberately, so that it permeates really the organization, because that's the way, you know, it really starts making a shift. And the second thing, I should have written it down. I had this brilliant idea.
It's okay, it happens.
Yeah, the second thing goes back to Jocelyn's point, because this is also important, that organizations really do something that's goes beyond buzzwords, and it ties in with psychological safety. When people see that this is authentic, this is not just cover up and do a nice program, then people can actually really embrace it much more. Yeah. So those 2 things, and it boils down to psychological safety.
Okay, I'm happy you said that, because now, sorry, Nermeen, I want to get back to you again on this. When it comes to HR and the initiatives and stuff, and I know we were talking earlier, and I said, you know, we heard a lot of the buzz when it comes to let's have a foosball table, and you know, this is how we take care of our employees. When the photos were first leaked or not leaked, but first published of Google headquarters and stuff, and they've got beanbags in them, and I'm like, no, this is not about mental wellness if you're still going to be toxic in the environment. But as Susanna was just saying, now going beyond the buzzwords and beyond the hashtags that get you the attention, what are things that are really genuine or authentic in that sense?
I think really listening is critical. Yeah. You know, workforces are very diverse, whether culturally or generationally, or, you know, on any kind of diversity spectrum. And I think because of the unique makeup of each organization, I think the starting point is listening. Ask if you feel people may be a little bit uncomfortable with sharing, do an anonymous survey. I mean, there are lots of things that people can do to better understand what's important, what people are seeking, what will be very helpful. And then once you have those, and you know, I think employees in those organizations are restless when it comes to surveys, just because so many of them are done, and then they don't really see kind of what happens or next, the result. Yeah. What happens with the results of those. So I think it's really making sure that the feedback is shared, and this is the plan, and recognizing that plan won't be able to cover the needs of 100% of the workforce, but at least there's a starting point where it covers a lot of the different things that people are raising and people find very important, and there's consensus about.
Okay, great. So this brings us on to the sharing again of the screen and saying, what are 3 strategies we can move forward from here? There we go. Let's share. Yep. Susanna, give us please 3, we call them mental wellness advocacy strategies that we can implement today.
Right.
So please do give us a quick rundown to bring this conversation to the fruitful end.
The first thing that I would recommend is that for whether you're an individual or an organization, that you find qualified help. And what I mean by qualified help is that get somebody who really knows what they're talking about. This is a very popular and very fashionable field at the moment, and there are all sorts of players out there. So make sure that you know whom you're talking to and they actually know what they're talking about. The second one is more for the individuals, but also for HR and people who are dealing with mental health issues in organizations. Trauma is something that I mentioned in the introduction, and we haven't really discussed it. That's for another time. But it's that those things are not in your mind; they are in your body. And when people understand that it's all about feeling threatened at work or feeling threatened around, with what's going on around you, you'll be able to understand much better what's going on inside of you and with other people. This takes away the stigma. It's not somebody crazy in their minds. It's actually somebody reacting with their nervous system and with their body because of what has happened to them.
Sure.
Extremely important. And then the third one is, we already discussed this, adapt your practices and use things that suit you. Again, this is whether it's an individual or organization. Avoid hype and choose those things that suit you or your organization. That's my 3 cents.
Lovely. I love that. Actually, we didn't think of it as the 3 cents, but it's usually 2, but we're giving 3 cents this time. We're generous.
Yes.
Nermeen, would you take us through your 3 cents, please?
All right. So, so first and foremost, within organizations, when wellness and mental health are high on the agenda, something gets done about it. Yeah. So finding a senior sponsor and champions within the organization is critical. It's really the genuine hardcore kind of starting point. So and the higher up you go, the greater the impact. So definitely, see who's interested in it, see who you think will be a great sponsor for mental health and mental wellness, and have a conversation with them. The second thing is talking to other leaders in the organization, whether that's your manager, another leader within the organization, HR, about creating programs that help and cater to the diverse employee makeup within the workplace in your organization. Go with suggestions, go with ideas. It's very easy to kind of dump this on someone's desk. Don't do that. Have a conversation. It needs to be 2 ways. Yeah. And then the third one is lead and support initiatives, whether, as employees, whether within or outside of the organization. I know a lot of people within organizations where just on a very social level, they've informally created support groups. They've helped with resources. There's an informal network, and it's very, for me, it's very it's eye-opening almost how people have taken this on seriously. And I think especially with the Generation Y and Generation Z, who are more comfortable discussing these topics, that there's a lot happening that they've done informally. And once they start doing these things informally, they become formal because they capture the attention of the organization. So I think those 3 things, if you can do them, it takes you a long way.
Great. So we know it's doable. We know it's doable. Jocelyn, your 3 cents, please.
Yes, I think before I just tackle my 3 sets, or at least one of them is similar to Susanna's, I as well very much encourage seeking really qualified help and someone who's really professional who can deal with mental illness on a deeper level than what we are seeing today. Now, I think one important point we need to take into consideration is, yes, absolutely, mental wellness is not a one-size-fits-all formula, whether it's to individuals, or to organizations. So, yeah, we do take the organization's culture and values into account besides their KPIs, etc. But I think I need to point one thing from, again, my experience and what I am seeing. Mental wellness is not a one-time event or something that will show results overnight, yet it doesn't have to take years. So luckily, yes, there are solutions that are effective, that deliver on results and do not really have to take ages. But also we need to understand in the past world that we're living in, that results will not show in overnight, and this is something not to be taken on occasionally, periodically, or as a one-time of event. So to my points, again, yes, absolutely, I do recommend having qualified people who tackle this issue along with senior management, so that at least we remove the stigma around tackling mental wellness. There are simple solutions that and practical solutions that employees can adopt, because as we've mentioned or talked a lot earlier, some people yeah, I mean, like, I know I should be doing this, or I know I should be doing that, while they have some probably deeper issues that they need to deal with so that they can progress and move forward. So we need to be careful with the solutions or that we are offering to the organizations or the employees. My third point, which I think is also extremely important, which is mental wellness at the workplace is not luxury. Honestly, I received some questions. I've been also discussing this point with some organizations. Stress and its myriad of things that come with it has a direct effect on productivity, on our engagement. People are not lazy, procrastinating, burnout, creativity, which is very much needed today in our world. So, and the figures are there. It's people, I mean, like I've received questions, can organizations afford it? Well, the question now is, can they afford not to have it? That's a bigger question that we need to tackle, because as you've mentioned, Susanna, there is a lot of research and organizations who have taken the lead, and the figures are there. For every £1 spent with Deloitte, for example, they got a return on investment in £5. And similarly, World Health Organization has documented figures and results by supporting mental health at work. So I think we need to ask nowadays, can we afford not having mental health programs at work? And this is very essential to every organization, to the economy as well.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Well, I hope the answer is yes, it is important that we have it, and no, we should not avoid it, and no, it is not a luxury. So my strategies would be, yet again, going back to you as an individual and going back to the person. That person is anywhere and everywhere within the organization. That person is a human. that person is someone who goes home, and that person who is someone who interacts with other people. So taking labels away from organization, and then suddenly we have to think of a hypothetical personality there. But learn to recognize when you're not feeling like yourself. And I know it starts that way. It's like, I'm not feeling it today. I'm not feeling like me. Or learn to understand and to recognize. And that, again, going back to the awareness part, the awareness of when you are not feeling right, you're not feeling like yourself. And that is of the signs of mental wellness, that you are being impacted one way or another, whether that be stress is finally getting to you in a physical form, or whether your sympathetic nervous system has been fired on for too long, or whether you are falling victim to toxicity within the workplace. These are things that you should be in touch with yourself. Feeling not okay is actually not okay. I know that part of also corporate common culture right now is everyone needs to be stressed. I know I used to use this phrase more than often. Oh, I'm running around like a headless chicken. And it was funny. And it's not. It's not funny. It just means that I was overwhelmed all the time, that I could not focus on things that serve me. So become an advocate for yourself in terms of recognizing when you're not feeling well, and when you're not feeling like yourself, whether you're an employee, a business leader, or an owner, a business owner, you're somewhere within an organization that impacts you on a personal level, that impacts other people around you. And that's why it is important. And that also, it's not just impacting people in the workplace, impacts people at home. And you are responsible for who you are and what you can do about it. The second part would be use your voice, speak up. And I think just mirroring what the ladies have been saying is start advocating, whether that be on a formal level or informal level, and that becomes formal level, like Nermeen was talking about. It is about using your voice to speak up, to do something about it, see what you can do. I'm not saying go on riots within the organization and saying, we're not doing this, but actually just even organizing let's have coffee together, guys, after work or before work, or let's go for a walk, or let's start embracing a healthy practice together. Whatever that is using your voice. That is speaking up. You're speaking up for yourself and for others. And well, my slogan, as you know, is empowered you empowers others. Well, that in essence is it. It's using your own voice, and those around you get to use and recognize that they have a voice too. Last but not least, again, clarity on what your business objectives are, what your personal objectives are, what your wellness objectives are, and then going out and seeking that, doing the actions towards that, towards achieving those objectives, the Kaizen way, as in small incremental steps, the Japanese way, or whether you are in a position of power where you can take something drastic, and you adjust your mindset accordingly. When you know where you're going, when you have that clarity, when you know how you want to feel, then, and how you want others to feel, that's when you start taking action towards that. You start having that clarity, and your mindset supports you in that sense. That's where we talk about a growth mindset. That's where we talk about the abundance mindset. That's where we talk about positive mindset even. Okay. So these would be my strategies. And kind of now, I think we might have addressed this partially in our conversation or in our discussion in the middle, but now these are the questions that we agreed that this is now what? What about you? What can you do? Whether you're talking on a personal level, organizational level, departmental level, home level even, you have to ask yourself these questions. Where do I want to be? Again, going back to the clarity part. What do I want to achieve? And am I at my optimal state? And I think Jocelyn and Susanna, from a neuroscience perspective, maybe you can quickly define for us what an optimal state is from your perspective and from your study and experience.
Would you like to go first, Susanna, or shall I go?
Go ahead.
Okay, I think from the very basic level, it's important to understand as human beings, as I call ourselves, we're still very primitive in our physiology and the needs to be at rest at a very calm state or for recovery. So really our needs are still very basic in that sense. But what I would summarize as an optimal state or being at a state where you can function is how much you can adapt to the challenges, how much you are resilient, how much you have that emotional elasticity without affecting the functions of your mind. As we know from neuroscience, it's not that. I mean, like people with heightened emotions or emotional fluctuations, or who cannot even manage emotions, cannot make decisions. So this is extremely important, not to go into the again the stage of where how much our optimal state can affect how much we're engaged at work, how much are we being creative, how much are being truly productive and not just like busy. And instead of like promoting this myth, it's a myth, the work-life balance, we find ourselves not needing that slogan again, because we are designed to thrive. We are designed to deal with challenges. It's just like, how are we incorporating, or what mindset are we operating from that enables us to really thrive in the challenges or the world that we are seeing today.
Susanna.
Thank you for asking this question. This is, I love this one. This boils down to what I do. It's very simple from my perspective. The optimal state, we have two choices. It's either fear or connection. We can be in those two states, more or less. And when we are in that optimal state, we are in that state of safety. And from that safety comes clarity. From that state of safety comes innovation, love, connection, and all the good stuff. And you know when you are in that state.
Yes, yeah, that's true. And then from the other side of the coin, which is actually not the other side of the coin, and they're the same side, because yet again, we're individuals and we have many roles. But as a mental wellness chaperone and advocate within the organization, then this is the time that you need to, excuse me, you need to start asking yourself, what purpose do I want the wellness activities within the organization to serve? Are my employees at their optimal state, and how is their state impacting my business? And well, Nermeen, from your perspective now, optimal state of employees within an organization, and how would that state impact a business from your perspective?
So optimal state in HR lingo is engagement, right? So yeah. when people are very much engaged, they give a lot more. They're more likely to stay. They become positive members of that community. They uplift teams. So endless kind of results because of it. I think where, again, we go wrong is optimal state for each of us is a little bit different, and what triggers that optimal state and what puts us in that is very different. But again, it really starts with me as an individual. And knowing what I want, and what makes me excited, what makes me excited to get up every morning and go to work. So I think that's kind of the starting point. And once we have that, I think there's in today's day and age, I think there's an increased stress and accountability on managers, because they directly interact with people at a very human level. And it's become really up to them, and not everyone is equipped, obviously, and they need help, and some are more comfortable or less comfortable to ask for it, on how to take care of the people on their teams, how to manage a situation where they are stressed. Zoom fatigue is a real thing, and I think everyone experienced it in this COVID 19 period, figuring out how to manage that. I think that, I think there's a lot of accountability on managers to help that, but at the core, the starting point is always the individual.
Well, ladies, thank you so much. That was really amazing. And I think from this perspective, yet again, where we are advocating for mental wellness, we're advocating for us as individuals and for those individuals that comprise organizations. And we, I, you, each of us can make a difference. So thank you for sharing the stage and for sharing the spotlight and for sharing your expertise and your energy and your resources in that sense. So I think we might stop here to take a couple of questions or respond to a couple of comments. Let's see. Do you have any individual questions that came along your way? Because we know how sometimes talking about mental wellness is not even welcome. I've had people like reaching out to me, well, not today, but sorry, in the past, is like, I can't comment on what you posted, but I'd really like to talk to you about it because there are people from my organization that are on the same group and I don't really want them to know. And I'm like, and that is exactly why we keep talking about judgment-free spaces. We keep talking about safe space. We keep talking about it is okay to not be okay. But as we were saying, I think even when you come to say, oh, I can't come to work today, I'm overwhelmed, they're like, what's wrong with you? It's kind of man up or woman up or whatever is up and then just come to work. Yeah, I've got to do this. And I think that is a chunk of it as well.
Yeah. If I can add, Hanan, I think one of the, we keep looking at what makes successful leaders, and that definition is evolves and reinvents itself. And one of the things that a definition that I've seen, or a trait that I've seen that I think really, really kind of supports this case, is having leaders who are comfortable to be vulnerable, right? Yeah. I think once you have leaders who are very comfortable to be vulnerable, it sends a very clear message to the rest of the organization. We're human. It's okay to be human. We can all have, a really bad day, and sometimes we'll have good days. But there's this very genuine, authentic association with vulnerability. And I think the more leaders we see becoming and letting themselves be vulnerable in front of others, in front of their employees, their teams, the bigger organization, I think the more we see people being comfortable to discuss it and ask for it and deal with it.
And I think that's where Brené Brown comes in, huh? They're talking about vulnerability and about shaming and stuff. But that is it. I mean, we do get shamed. I mean, yes, I'm going to here be feminist in a way. And yes, as women, we get shamed a lot more because I got it directly. It's like, seriously, I'm like, I was in a meeting for 3 hours. And I'm like, I got to go get my son from the nursery. He's like, how can you talk about your son in a business meeting? I'm like, I'm a person and I'm a mother and I have a son who's at nursery. I'm not going to leave him in the street. And that does not make me any less professional, but it's those kind of things that keep, the shaming and the guilting and those kind of things that kind of really get to your mental wellness. They get to you as in, now I'm not competent enough, or now I get overlooked for a promotion because I can't make it to an evening meeting. I was like, why would you need to have an evening meeting if we can do it in the morning? And it is those kind of things that really we have to think of the implications of our words and our approach, whether men or women, and whether we have men or women working with us, it is the same. It is those kind of things that kind of really get to us, get to the core. And if we've already got inner child wounds that we're still healing from, that really triggers us. And that is another thing. It is addressing those triggers as well. So like, oh, I'm not worthy. I shouldn't really be taking this position. I was like, no, you're just human. There's nothing wrong with you. Just keep going. You're doing great.
I have a question for Nermeen. Just popped into my mind. You know how I love statistics, but I keep seeing people who complain about their bosses a lot. Like this is the #1 complaint. My boss is toxic. My boss is from hell. And I keep hearing pretty horrendous stories, for real. Like there are some really sick people out there running organizations and departments. But what is your take on this one? I'm probably a little bit biased. Like, I'm not seeing many healthy leaders if I'm talking about individuals. So
yeah, that's a tough one. So I think our experiences are very personal, right? I've seen leaders who are very, very, very direct, and there's no sugarcoating. And some people find that very comforting and reassuring, and it's very transparent, while other people feel it's very aggressive and it's very dry. And we're talking about the same person. I think always with the starting point when someone's really struggling with a manager is to go have an honest conversation with that manager. That starting point, I say, solves 50% of all issues around, bad managers, just because people are different, and some people, managers, feel that one person on the team appreciates a certain style, and so maybe everyone else does, or the assumption is that. So that's, for me, the conversation always starts between that person and the manager, and transparently expressing how they feel and how uncomfortable they are, and with very specific examples so that person understands. Now, the other side of it, where they're probably right, is to talk to others in the organization. I mean, companies, for various reasons, whether online reviews or governance issues, or a whole lot of reasons for it, but they're a lot more careful around making sure that their managers are good, because they lose talent that way. They struggle to hire people. It causes sometimes even compliance or lawsuits in some extreme cases. So I think companies are a lot more aggressive on managers than they were, I'd say, maybe 15, 20 years ago. So that's the other direction. But the starting point should always be a very honest, open conversation, and then see where that takes you.
thank you.
Ladies, do we want to take one last question? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jocelyn.
No, I just wanted to also add to Nermin's point about vulnerability. Now, I think although probably today it's a little bit misunderstood, and vulnerability probably means to so many people is like showing our weakest side or our darkest side. I think what Brené Brown meant by it is mostly about being human and compassionate, and understanding that we share the same emotions, feeling, whatever. So besides vulnerability, I think what is important in organization culture, especially when we want to tackle or sort out the stigma around mental wellness, is transparency and authenticity. Those, together with compassion, again, as you said it, Hanan, we're human. We're all humans, and none of us really carries two brains. So that transparency, authenticity would ease a little bit the stigma around tackling mental wellness, because not all employees have the courage to talk to a manager or to another person or whatever. And probably easing down a little bit on leadership trainings. And one of the important points that was tackled in the World Economic Forum call was that how much companies were focusing on diversity and inclusion. And this has been the hype again in the past 3 years. The results, what research has shown, is that people are not comfortable. We are truly facing issues, be it around what has been focused on in the previous years, from work-life balance, time management, leadership seminars in and out, diversity and inclusion. We really need to take an honest, courageous look at what organizations really need to uplift the business and their people.
That's amazing, ladies. Did any of you get, we got some amazing comments. Thank you for everyone who's watching us live. And thank you for your amazing and insightful comments. And we're super happy that you got value from our discussion and our disruptive conversation. We could have disrupted a lot more, but we tried to restrain ourselves coming the first time live. Maybe next time we can take it up, we're not sure too, or maybe we can do that in private sessions. Ladies, it's been an honor. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and for your energy and for your knowledge. And for everyone who's watching us, thank you. Ladies, would you like to say, if, as I ask in my podcast, what would be your last statement to sum it up? Let's go from the top up. Dormeen, on my screen, you're up there.
Go find out what makes you happy, what makes you excited, what makes you want to get up out of bed every morning. That's the starting point.
Nice. Jocelyn, we're going clockwise now. That's clockwise? That is clockwise, not counterclockwise. So. Or actually, that is counterclockwise. I've got problem with right and left till now, so I apologize. Anyway, Jocelyn.
To everyone, be it on an organizational level or an individual level, prioritize your mental health and wellness, and keep in mind it always starts in the mind. You can, I always joke about it with my friends. You can eat broccoli, stand on your hands and chant mantras all day, but if what is going in the mind is not really right, I don't think the overall life will be right. So this is a priority for us now.
Perfect. Susanna?
Mental health pain is not a pathology. So pain is an indicator that something, it's a message to you. So just become comfortable with listening to those messages and start feeling safe. And you'll have a completely different life.
Well, I'd like to sum it up with yet again, my preaching message, but the message that I know has changed my life around. And that is, empowered you empowers others. When you take the power in your own hands, when you advocate for yourself, when you stand up for yourself, by yourself, not against anyone else, just for you, understanding your limitations, pushing your boundaries, going outside comfort zones, and understanding what triggers you, healing what needs to heal, you're empowering yourself. And by doing that, by being confident, by being vulnerable, by being authentic, by being compassionate, you empower everyone else around you. And I really hope, I feel like I'm becoming Gandhi in this sense, but it's like, people, please be more human and be more humane. And in that sense, we won't even need to have these conversations anymore. But it all boils down to that. We're all the same. Just be you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, ladies, once again. And we're going to see you next time. See you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Empowered to Grow podcast. For further engagement with a tribe of empowered women, join my Facebook group, Empowered to Grow, or visit my website, www.hananalbasha.com. I'll catch you on the next episode. And until then, know that empowered you empowers others. Love, abundance, and prosperity to you all.